I'll be read a second time. I call the member for Newtown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to make a contribution on behalf of the Greens to the Crown Lands Management Bill and wish to raise, first of all, my concerns about the fact that we are receiving this bill after it having been considered in the other place and passed through in the dark of the night. At 4 a.m. in the morning, well, it was actually the morning indeed, 4 a.m. 4 a.m. What we see is the threat to our public space and our parkland being consistently done in the middle of the night by this Baird government. We know that at recent light rail discussions it was pointed out that actually it was probably wise that in relation to future tree removals we would see that it was better to do that removal in the middle of the night so that the community couldn't actually engage and watch what was happening. And then we see in relation to Sydney Park that the residents there have been having to camp out 24/7 to ensure the protection of the trees in their much-loved Sydney Park. And now we see the passing of this bill that will remove the protections on our Crown lands happening again in the middle of the night. The community is sick of this approach by the Baird government that seeks to attack our public assets, our valuable public land, and in this case our Crown land, and hand large swathes of it over to the control of councils and to the risk that it will be sold off to developers for profit, leased or overdeveloped to stop the community. Let's just take a look at the Crown lands in the electorate of Newtown.
The member for Newtown will be heard in silence.
There are a number of parks and reserves that are Crown lands in the electorate of Newtown. Hollis Park in Newtown, Prince Alfred Park in Surrey Hills, Shannon Reserve in Surrey Hills, and Victoria Park in Camperdown. Currently, these parks are well looked after by the administration and the elected councillors in the City of Sydney. But let us not forget that recently, in the lead up to the council elections, the Baird government introduced legislation to try to gain control of the City of Sydney Council by giving businesses 2 votes. We know that successive governments in New South Wales of both political persuasions have attempted to grab control of the City of Sydney Council by amalgamations or through stealth of giving businesses 2 votes. It clearly backfired in this case, and we saw the overwhelming support and re-election of the Lord Mayor Clover Moore. But let us not think that they will stop at their desire to get control over the City of Sydney Council. So let's imagine into the future the Liberal control over the City of Sydney Council, knowing their track record on what is happening at the moment at Sydney Park. We are seeing a world-prized, much-loved Sydney Park under threat from the WestConnex motorway. We are seeing the Baird government being willing to carve off metres of that Sydney Park for the delivery, metres into the park on multiple edges to put WestConnex in there and to get rid of Sydney Park. We are seeing them get rid of endangered areas and forests as a result of delivering motorways. So let's just imagine then what happens to the beloved Prince Alfred Park in however many years' time if the Liberals get control of the City of Sydney Council. And we've handed over this Crown lands and Prince Alfred Park to the council's control. What happens then when we say, oh, maybe there's a bit too much congestion on Cleveland Street? Maybe we want to build some more roads just along that area. That is where we start to have a look. And the member from Drummoyne laughs.
I didn't laugh.
The member for Drummoyne mocks these suggestions, but we know that in the initial plans around WestConnex,
The member for Newtown will be heard in silence.
That Victoria Park in Camperdown was under threat from a potential portal or a stack being put in Victoria Park as a result of WestConnex. It was the community's outrage at this suggestion that stopped it. And so while we might say that the risks to the inner city areas and the people living in the electorate of Newtown of this change is limited, we know that the Baird Liberal government will stop at nothing to try and gain control of the City of Sydney Council, and we know that there is a risk then to all of the parks and all of the green space that we feel is so protected in this area and must continue to be protected in this area. It is clear that the community is concerned by what this Baird Liberal-National Government is doing. The lack of respect for our public assets, the lack of respect for our open space and green space is of serious concern and is something that is causing communities across my electorate of Newtown, but across the entirety of this state, to stand together and raise their concerns, raise their voices and say that it is not for this government to sell off and to hand over and to overdevelop our precious green space.
Before